Michelle.
Hi, Erin. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
You too. It's nice to chat. I mean, I really enjoy our chats. I
Me
have
too. It's
seem
been
to
a
have
while.
specific people that I like to chat with every year, and you're always on the list. So
Thank you. And you're always on my DM list. I
yeah,
know we have a lot of DMs back and forth. So
yes. Well, yeah. Well, we've got a couple people that are in right now. So thank you to whoever's here for joining us.
I think one of them is my cell phone. I was just trying it
Oh,
out. So
okay. Well, hi, Erin. Thanks for joining.
hi. Thanks for having me.
I don't think we could see who's actually. It looks like they're both from my Facebook page.
Oh, okay.
So interesting. Good. Well, thanks for joining me, whoever you are. Anyways. So I have Erin with me today because it's Celiac Awareness Month, and I am talking with a lot of the advocates in the community who I think have just something to add and something to say that's important. So, it's actually my best friend Dallas. That's one of us that's
Hi,
here right
Dallas.
now.
I recognize the name, Michelle, from your Facebook page. So
Yeah, yeah, besties for what 35 over 35 years, I think.
oh, awesome.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us, Dallas. But she's actually just recently possibly celiac as well, so she's had some testing done, and it's so I think it would be helpful for her too,
Yeah.
considering
Well,
we're going to be
she's got a good advocate at her side. So
yeah. Well, she's been there for me for lots of stuff.
yeah.
Boy, oh boy. So it's nice that I can actually help her out in a way too. So,
Awesome. Great.
but yeah, so we're going to be talking about restaurants and
Yes.
the difficulties, actually, in a way, of how hard it is to really eat at a new restaurant. For me, it is anyway. Around here, we don't have a lot of dedicated places.
Right.
We're just kind of we have to ask the questions. So I think that this will be good for those people like myself who don't have a lot of dedicated places that they can eat at. So
For sure. And I think you approached me when I was going to a new restaurant. And it's been a while since I've gone to a new to me restaurant. So your timing was good.
yeah,
It's fresh in my head. But yeah, I mean, I think we're geographically in different kind of
yeah,
celiac locations, So
yeah.
Michelle, you're in Edmonton? Is that
Outside
right?
Edmonton, yeah, in
Okay.
Stony Point. Yeah,
Okay. Right. And I'm in New York City, so it's a little bit different.
it is a little different. Yeah, we definitely don't have the variety around
Right.
here.
Right.
So
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to kind of walk you through what I do. I mean, like I said, I have a handful of places that I trust, and that's really where I go the most. Also, we haven't been dining out as much because of the pandemic.
right.
um, but yeah, I'm happy to kind of walk through, and if there's any questions, answer questions. I think we both are at the point where we say this is what is best for us. And I know my celiac is not your celiac,
Yeah,
but I think that there's definitely guidelines, and I have an event coming up that I'm actually asking a ton of questions about. So I'm happy to share that with you.
that would be lovely. I think that it would be a real asset to like the people in the community. And because we're recording this too, I mean, we can share it wherever we need to share it. So we can
Sure.
get a lot of people can see it. So
Yeah, and when I get my draft finalized, I can post I kind of have like top 5 tips, but it's been
right.
in my drafts since we started this conversation, and I apologize. I did set a deadline and I missed the deadline. So
And that happens, especially when you got a toddler.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. I mean, the thing that I've been seeing floating around a lot this month, and that we are both big kind of cheerleaders for, is being your best advocate. And I think that's whether it's with your friends or family or just like yourself, is like learning how to speak up for yourself. And that's kind of where I start this, is that um, you need to start this conversation. And I understand it could be embarrassing, but like you need to speak up for yourself because you don't want to get sick if you're dining outside of your home. I say this from 40 something years of living with celiac disease, but it took me into my like mid to late 20s to really be the advocate for myself that I am today. I did not speak up like this when I was a kid, and I wish I did because I was sick a lot. But now I do, and I ask questions. I also can read a response and say, okay, they have no clue.
Right.
So I
Right.
kind of like have examples of what I've heard in the past, and I'm sure you can share some as well. But then you just know that it's not the place for you. So.
Right.
So I think, to start, if you have an event, you have a special occasion coming up, you have friends that want to go out to eat with you, you get invited to a party. I think what I always try to do is be the one to make the recommendations. Because then from the get-go, I can say, okay, here are 3 places. And, I have my 3 safe, so to say, places.
Right.
That are not necessarily dedicated gluten-free, but that understand celiac and understand how to prepare. So whenever somebody like says, let's meet up, or, let's grab a bite. We had friends come into New York from California and they wanted to meet for lunch. So I was like, okay, let me do the research. They told me the neighborhood they wanted to be in. And yeah, so I just started from there, like by kind of grabbing the bull by its horns and saying, I'm going to choose the place. I know that's not always what happens, especially if you're invited out with friends, but I think that at least gets you one step ahead in finding a place that you're comfortable with.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the one that has the I don't want to say food issues because it's not exactly the best word, but you're the one that needs a special diet.
For sure.
You're the one that, I mean, how much are you going to enjoy this visit with them if you're worried about what you're eating, right?
Yeah, totally.
And that's the thing. So I think it's important that, I'm sure that because they're your friends too, they don't mind doing that, right?
Yeah, and like a lot of my friends in New York are people I've met through the support group. So like we're all gluten-free anyway, but
Oh, that's nice.
yeah,
That's
but
wonderful.
now my friends all know. Everybody knows I'm gluten-free. Everybody knows my son actually has a peanut allergy. Like most of our parent friends know now that he has that. So, because I am comfortable with talking about it now, pretty much everybody knows.
Right.
But my friends who came into town from California, they know, but like they're more close friends with my husband, so they like don't know the extent of it. And so when they were coming in, I said, where do you want to meet us? What kind of food do you want or not want? Do you have any food allergies? And I'll pick a few places. So we kind of knew we wanted a nicer lunch. It was Easter weekend, so we wanted to take into account if they were eating or not eating anything, in observance of Lent. And so we kind of started from there. And then I really did the deep dive, which is my top resources, which are some of the apps, which I know, come up all the time, like Find Me Gluten-Free. And these are just my starting points. I want to emphasize I never use the apps as like the be all end all, because they're crowdsourced, right? So anybody can go on there, anybody can leave a review. And this goes for any app, like whether it's Yelp or, TripAdvisor. These are crowdsourced reviews, and sometimes people only leave reviews when they're really happy, and sometimes people only leave reviews when they're really mad. So I start with the review sites. I start with the apps, and then also here in New York, if we want to make reservations, we can use a website called OpenTable or Resy, which is RESY, and you can actually search on there for gluten-free options. So for this particular lunch, we weren't going to go to any of my safe places because we were kind of changing, not eating out with just a toddler. And so, and then I actually posted it to my Instagram. I said, hey, this is what we're looking for. Has anybody been to any restaurants in this neighborhood? I said, it doesn't have to be dedicated gluten-free. I just need them to understand what celiac is. And I got a lot of recommendations. So I kind of build my list and, do my cross-checking and everything. And then if I feel like from the reviews I've read and the feedback I've gotten that it could be a safe place, then I reach out to the restaurant itself. Right. I always start with Instagram because it seems like people are more checking their Instagram more frequently these days. Yeah. So I just put it out there. Like, my first question is, can you accommodate somebody with dietary restrictions due to celiac disease? This means no wheat, no barley, no rye. That's my initial question to kind of like start the conversation. I can usually tell if they respond yes. Like, I'm like, well, that's not enough information. No. Or if they're like, we can, but we can't, you can tell by the response. Like, you can tell if these people know what they're talking about or not. Yeah. And then I usually go on to like my next level of questions, like, what are your protocols for keeping food safe? Like, how do you avoid cross contact in the kitchen? This particular place I went in April was a pizza place, which I never eat pizza out in New York City ever, because I really just don't trust any place. So I said, what do you do to keep the gluten-free pizza safe? And they said, we have a separate prep station and we have a separate oven. And I was like, wow, people know what they're talking about. Bonus. Yeah. Like, okay, like they get it and they understand. And so for me, like, that was okay, green flag, like, let's move to the next level, like, right. They know what I'm talking about. They can address how they prepare things. And then from there, what we had to make a reservation, and I use, like I said, Resy or Open Table. And in these reservation programs, you can put a bio, and in my bio, it says, I have celiac disease. This is what I cannot eat. I also have a shellfish allergy, and my son has a peanut allergy. So all of that is like really like straightforward in my bio. Right. And then when I make my reservation, that's sent directly to the restaurant. So that's like step 2 is now they've read it on Instagram or email. They've now read it in my reservation. And then when I arrived at the restaurant, they knew who I was because I made the reservation, but they also had the notes there. If it's a restaurant that you can't make a reservation, kind of backing up a little, I would say call, speak to a manager, but also try to get it in writing. Like, try to get that direct message, like, and ask who is responding. Because a lot of times, and I know because I do this in my day job, is like, I respond on behalf of my clients, but like, I might not have the right answer. There's a restaurant here in New York that swore up and down that they could provide gluten-free food. But they were they said they were a gluten-free restaurant, and then they were having a gluten-filled pizza making class in their kitchen. So their menu, in theory, was gluten-free, but their kitchen was not gluten-free. No. And they were saying they were a gluten-free restaurant. So I took them off my list. I know a lot of people swear by their other location. I just don't trust them. No. And they repeatedly said over social media, no, we have no gluten. We have no gluten. And then I found their class for a gluten pizza. And they said, oh yeah, well, we, our menu is gluten-free. And I was like, well, your kitchen isn't. And why are you making gluten pizza in your gluten-free restaurant? So
it doesn't make any sense though, really.
Right. But my red flag was from that first direct message with their company, their restaurant, and they just couldn't like give me a straight answer. They just like, every time I wrote to them, it was a different answer from a different person. So, no. So I think that to me is just like avoid, Yeah. But yeah, I going back a little bit more, I think that a lot of people ask me, what do I ask? But my top questions are like, or statements are that I have celiac. This is what I cannot eat. this is where it could be found, in a roux or a soup, or and really, how do you keep your kitchen safe for me?
Right.
A lot of places in New York are really honest, and they're like, our kitchen is way too small. Like, we can't accommodate you. And I'm fine with that. Like, tell me that up front
Be
before I
honest.
spend
The truth is,
$50.
yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna
the truth
buy
is better than
dinner in New York and then like go home and be sick for 3 days. So
I'd rather them tell me, I'd rather a restaurant tells me the truth that they
totally.
can accommodate than attempt to accommodate and make me sick, because,
Yeah.
it's bad. And some people react really bad, and I happen to
Yeah.
be one of them.
I'd be curious because I know you went on like a little road trip.
Yeah.
How did you how did you handle going to a new place and finding places to eat?
Similar to what you do. There were two restaurants that I felt fairly comfortable with. I didn't do as much research as I would normally do, and I ended up getting gluten the last night we were there.
Oh, okay.
And it was a pizza joint.
Yeah.
But no, I had this really great, oh geez, what did I eat? I think it was salmon. I can't remember. But there was, I mean, I just basically, I asked my father-in-law, do you know anybody here that does gluten-free?
Hmm.
And he's like, well, I'm pretty sure that, this restaurant does a lot of gluten-free stuff, or most of their restaurant. It was a Greek restaurant.
Okay.
And so a lot of their dishes were just naturally gluten-free. And they
Mhm.
did understand celiac. When I called them, she was like, yeah, we know what celiac is. We can make your meal separately. And then when we walked in to pick it up, because we didn't eat there, of course,
Right.
because, pandemic, and I'm not up to that yet. But
No.
we walked in and we said, this is the order. It's for so and so. And she's like, oh, is that the celiac order? I said, yeah. She said, and she went, celiac order up. And
Oh,
so it was like, wow, right?
yeah. That's
And they
awesome.
have a separate, oops, I just moved my computer. They had a separate area where they prepared my meal. And the pan that they use for that particular meal
Hmm.
is only used for that meal, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
naturally gluten-free. It was shrimp, actually. It was garlic shrimp.
Right.
So
Right.
they have separate pans for the separate dishes so that they can just keep cooking and, that
Yeah.
dish and that
Yeah.
thing. And so everything that was in that pan was gluten-free.
That's great.
Yeah, and the utensils were all specific to that pan. And so they knew, you can tell that people had eaten there before that were celiac.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, the we do have well, more than a handful. We have a lot of gluten-free dedicated places now in New
Mm,
York City. But whenever there's even a new place that says they're dedicated gluten-free, I ask a lot of questions. And,
yeah,
I think some places, and maybe you've seen this on social media, but, so a new place recently opened, and they just didn't get their labeling right from the get-go. And like, they
yes.
said they were gluten-free and they weren't labeling it correctly. One of the top 8 allergens wasn't listed. And so that really like made me pause for a minute. Like, why are you calling yourself a gluten-free establishment if you don't even understand that this is really serious? And I was surprised by that because the owner has celiac, but again, like, maybe she doesn't react and doesn't take the extra precautions that we all need. But, you know, I'm really, really picky about who goes on my list, but then I'm really picky about where I dine out because
Right.
I want to be safe. Um, a lot of places have opened. Well, a lot of places closed during the pandemic, and then new places opened. And I just haven't even been there yet because of the pandemic. I think we're going to go back into the next highest level in New York pretty soon.
I
So
heard
they
things
might
like that.
close restaurants again. But you know what? There's so many outdoor places to eat now, which is really nice, or takeout.
Yeah.
We do a lot of takeout, and I know people have been nervous about takeout, and kind of like if you're ordering through a third party platform like Uber Eats or something. I don't know if you have that, but you
Yeah.
can order through that. But I actually call the restaurants and I'll order directly from the restaurants, just because then I can ask the questions that I would ask if I was in person.
Right.
Um, but again, like I'm thinking of like the last maybe 4 meals that we've ordered from or eaten outside, and they're all the same places. Like we just keep going to the same places because it's places that I know are safe for me, and I just don't want to take that risk. Of course, I would like to be dining out more, but it's a pandemic and I have a toddler, so there's other factors in play. But
Yes.
I think that the thing I can't emphasize enough is just speaking up. And you know, I'm sorry that people don't have as a supportive family maybe that I do, and I read this all the time and it makes me sad, but I've also been doing this for 4 decades, so like my family's just used to it, and
Right.
I understand it's a transition. I will say there's other people in my family that have since been diagnosed, and maybe their extended family doesn't quite understand and doesn't take it so seriously. And that makes me really sad because I know the person that needs to eat gluten free would really benefit from all of the family being supportive, not just like our side of the family being supportive.
Right.
So,
And
um,
I mean, I think I wrote this on one of my slides there recently. You need the support,
totally.
particularly when you first are diagnosed. Because, I mean, I'm going to use Dallas as an example, and I hope she doesn't mind, but she's been eating gluten free for on and off, right? Like paleo diet, and her family just feels better when
Yeah.
they eat gluten free. Obviously, we know why now, but and without that support, you go nuts, darling. Without that support, from her kids, from her husband, I'm sure it would be a lot harder because
For sure.
I mean, I'm incredibly lucky as well to have supportive family. My mother-in-law and father-in-law, they ask me, where do you want to eat if we go out, or before pre-pandemic, right?
Right.
But and they let me make the decision, and I call ahead and I ask all the questions, and if I don't feel comfortable, we don't eat there.
Yeah.
So it is sad that a lot of people don't have that type of support because it's needed, particularly right at the beginning of a diagnosis.
Yeah. Well, and you reminded me of an event I went to before the pandemic, and it was a group dinner. And, I mean, it's hard enough to get a group of people to decide on a place, whether you have a food allergy or not. But it's like, um, I made multiple suggestions, and also like taking into account the vibe people wanted. And I I know I pissed off a person in this group. Um, but I also knew that we would probably be spending at least $100 a person. And I was like, I'm not going to spend this much money to go out in New York City to get sick. I'm just
Right.
not. So
So
either I don't go, or we can go to one of these places. And ultimately, like everyone loved where we went. It wasn't a dedicated gluten-free restaurant, but you know, I guess in retrospect, like, do I really need that person as my friend if they're gonna think I'm like so picky because I didn't want to get sick? But
yeah,
um, you
yeah.
know, I, whatever. I knew the event going in was going to be expensive, and I could have bowed out, and I didn't want to bow out because I wanted to be there with everyone else. And so and again, I gave like 5 choices, and everybody agreed on this one place, but one person was annoyed that I was like being picky, and I'm like, oh well.
What about the other 4 people who decided it was a good place to eat? Are
Yeah,
they picky
no, there
too?
was like 10 of us. So, it happens. It happens, and it's disappointing that, but and we know this, like food is such an emotion. It's
Mm,
like an emotional thing, and so
social.
yeah, if you're left out or you get sick, I mean, you just don't want it to happen. And I think how I've always approached things is to look on the bright side and try to be positive and try to make suggestions. And yes, of course, we're lucky to live in New York where we have so many options. But even when I travel, to visit my husband's family or my family, like I do the research and I try to do all this ahead of time. So it's not like the night of and you're like, oh, where are we going to eat?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd rather spend the hours before, looking for the place to eat than to have to worry about it the night of. Of course, I like to be spontaneous too, but I don't feel like I'm that spontaneous in terms of eating anymore, just because because of the list, like now with my allergies and my son allergy and my celiac and all that. So I will say it's great when I go out with my sister and her family, because my sister and my nephew both have celiac. So like majority rules, and we're just like, here, this is where we're going. So, but it wasn't like that. It wasn't always like that.
No, and not everybody has that, like you were saying, not everyone has that kind of support where they can do that either.
Yeah.
Now our options around here are pretty slim.
Yeah.
We have one dedicated place in Stony Plain. And I've eaten there a couple times. They're okay.
Yeah.
But being a bit of a cook myself, it's just as easy to do something up for my family here at home.
For sure.
So,
Yeah.
and in the city, I think there's 2 or 3 dedicated places. There's one. What is it called? Rio Vita, I think. And she's amazing. It's not really a place that you would go in to sit and eat.
Right.
But she makes a bunch of stuff and she freezes it, and she does like donaires, and she makes fresh donuts every day.
Oh.
And they're not cake donuts. They're a yeasted donut.
Oh yeah.
They're donut holes, and they're fantastic. And she's just amazing. I cannot remember her name for the life of me. And there's like, we have there's a bakery, and Knick sells fresh stuff as well in Edmonton.
Oh.
Yeah, we have the storefront.
That's cool. I didn't know that. That's cool.
They've got good stuff, like fresh French breads, and like with jalapeno and olive, and then they've got the fresh dinner rolls and sauerkraut buns, and oh my goodness, we always spend too much money in there. And we do have a poutineery as well in Edmonton that is strictly gluten-free. And
I've never had poutine in my whole life, so
you are missing out. You can poutine anything. You can put anything on fries.
That's funny.
So, yeah,
well, you made me think of something else. Is I usually don't invite my friends to the dedicated gluten-free restaurants because they're a little like. But if I'm bringing food in, I will get gluten-free food and just serve it. And like people don't even know, like I think that's like, yes, there's a lot of really bad gluten-free food out there, but there's also a lot of really good gluten-free food. And so that's like what I really want people to see. Or like you said, you went to a Greek restaurant. Like there's a lot of cuisines that are naturally gluten-free. So it's like, let's go to that Greek restaurant, or go to that, Mexican restaurant that I know has a dedicated fryer, something like that, like where we're going to go and eat food and it just happens to be gluten-free.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I like to do that too. And like, again, most of my friends will be like, oh, can you eat here? I was like, well, yeah, I picked it out. Like I'm going to eat here.
I'm not going to drink water.
Yeah. Well, actually, and I wanted to comment because I saw this on somebody's Instagram. It's like, I've also gone out to eat where I don't eat anything because I don't feel like it's safe. And it's like more for me, like being with my friends, being with the company, probably drinking too much wine on an empty stomach, but also like, I don't want to isolate myself because of food. And I don't want to miss out on opportunities because of food. So, I think, yeah, it sucks, but you can also bring food and then, sneak it in your purse or something. Like when I went to visit my sister-in-law in France, and I posted a picture because every day I would have like gluten-free baguettes in my bag. So I just like carried baguettes around with me because I was like, well, I know they're French. I know there's going to be bread on each table. I'm just going to bring my own. And I did. And, maybe it's a little tacky, but like I got
I don't think so at all. Dallas here. My dad is totally picky, but when my parents come down, I obviously cook gluten-free, and he has no clue until I tell him
Yeah.
after. I said, "It's funny."
I've heard that too, Dallas. So
Yeah, that's. I know. I've had my dad over for dinner, and we'll cook something that's normally would be a gluten-filled meal, right? I can't remember what it was. It might have been pasta one time. And he'll eat it and he'll go, "This is gluten free." It's like,
yeah,
well, yeah, obviously, but a lot of the times too, like you were saying, like if you were to look at my website and look at my recipes, they're all things that I would make regularly. They're not special meals.
yeah, yeah,
And it's as simple as swapping out a soy sauce or a Worcestershire sauce, or
yeah.
however you say that. I never say that word right.
I don't know.
Worcester. It looks like Worcestershire, but I say Worcestershire. I think it's right, but I don't know. Or like you can get all of these sauces gluten free.
Yeah,
Like our our no name brand up here that's through Loblaws. It's the yellow label. 3/4 of their sauces aren't made with wheat. They're
yeah,
not specific to be gluten free. They just aren't made with wheat. So they're
right.
just naturally gluten free.
We
So
have that too. We have a store called Wegmans,
right.
and the Wegmans brand, which is the store brand, they're really good at labeling. But like so many of their sauces are just, or their marinades, or they're just gluten
Right.
free, and they say it right on the label. So it's great. I think it's come a long way, a
Hmm.
long way.
Oh yeah. Even when I started eating gluten free, some of the options were just like eating cardboard.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
oh, the bread,
yeah.
the
I
bread,
know.
the
I've been
bread.
there.
And now, just in the past few years, or maybe 5 years, the bread selection that has come out is brilliant. I mean, you guys, I don't think you guys get some of the bread that we have here, and vice versa.
Right.
You guys have something called Seriously Bread, I think. Is that what it's called?
Bread, seriously.
Bread
Yeah, that's a
Seriously.
sourdough. Yeah, we can't get that in the store, but we can order it online. Yeah.
Right. I remember seeing Jessica.
Yeah.
She's got it all the time.
Yeah.
And and we have, I don't know if you guys have access to Promise Brand yet.
No, but I see it. I see it
Yeah,
on Instagram as well. Yeah.
that's a nice one. It's just nice full size loaves.
Yeah.
And boy, oh boy. But the bread is so different now than it used to be. But
Yeah. Well, and back like to the restaurants and stuff, especially around
mhm.
here, like there are local gluten-free bakeries that sell wholesale to restaurants. So there's a very popular one called Everybody Eats, and
Mhm.
they sell their baguettes. And so like when you get a bread basket at this restaurant, you'll get sliced up Everybody Eats bread. And like I happen to be friends with Pedro, the owner, so I know where his breads go. But there was another place near my mom's house out on Long Island, that made sandwiches. And I knew Pedro was the distributor of the bread. And he also, because he has celiac, he like explained to them how to prepare it, and
Mhm.
so you kind of get to know like whose source is what, and like, and those
Right,
are the places I really want to give business to, because A, they're supporting another small business,
right.
but B, like they're working with someone that is making food specifically for people with celiac disease.
Yeah.
So
And
and I think what I see, I mean, this could be like an oversight, but like, I think for the most part, restaurants that are going out of their way to source these specific brands are restaurants that are doing their research.
yes.
Other restaurants are like, sure, we can make you a sandwich, and it's Udi's bread that they bought at Costco. And it's like, you know, I could tell immediately when I get a sandwich at a
Had a
restaurant
big
that's
hole in
on
it?
Udi's bread. Yeah. Well, you know what? It's funny because there's one place that I know that sells, but they do bagels, and sometimes the Udi's bagels have no circle in the middle. It's just like a flat puck almost.
So it's
And
like a big bun.
yeah, exactly. So when I like ordered a bagel with my breakfast, and I'm like, oh, this is Udi's, isn't it? Like you don't even have to tell me because I can tell just looking at it. So, um, but
Yeah, there's one. Well, even I don't know if you've tried the Knick-Knack bagels or not, but Those are
I don't know if I don't know if I've seen those.
they're
More
my
what we see on the shelves here are like the K-tunes, like the cookies and
oh
stuff.
yeah,
So,
right. Well, they're coming out with a wide sliced loaf as well,
oh, okay.
and
I'll have
I
to
can
look
say
for
that it's delicious.
it. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, their bagels to me, they're the most like a wheat bagel
Yeah.
because they boil them also
Oh,
and then
okay.
bake them. So it definitely makes a difference in that respect, I think. But because I've had some gluten-free bagels that are basically just buns.
Yeah.
They call them bagels because they have a hole in the middle, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, but
Mm.
yeah.
So I don't know if I answered all the questions you wanted me to, but
I
I
think
just
so. Well, actually, I do have a question. Um, do you always call the restaurants, or do you sometimes email them? What do you prefer? Because I prefer email.
I prefer email too. Like I said, like especially here, I start with Instagram, but I also will email. So there's a bakery here that just they were gluten-free products, but they were in a shared kitchen, but with a separate space, and they just moved into their own dedicated gluten-free kitchen. So I messaged them through Instagram first to get some information. Never heard back, and then I emailed them, and then they responded to my Instagram. So they saw, that I had contacted them 2 ways. So but I start with the email, and like I said, I ask for a name, like who is responding. Are you
Yeah.
the social media manager, or are you the general manager? Are you the
Right.
chef, or and then at least I have like a trail of what they have said to me. Um, and yeah, I think that that the email or the direct message is where I start. I don't call a lot of places. I find that it's easier to just do through email. And I see Dallas has a question, but I will say I also help plan trips for people. And I did a lot of research recently for one of my clients to go to Barcelona. And I did everything by email because I could use Google Translate. And so I could
Nice.
just cut and paste,
Smart. Yeah.
and that was really helpful. And I had a few lost in translation moments with Google Translate, but then I kind of reworded it and then got the answers that I needed. And so, yeah, I would say probably 90%, 95% of the time, I'm just doing it by email or direct message,
Right.
rarely calling. But then I also, if I'm making a reservation, I put it in my notes there as well. So,
Hmm.
um,
So
yeah, oh, sorry. I'm just
that's
seeing
okay.
Dallas's question.
Just gonna
Yeah.
read your question off. Yeah. Just
Yeah. My questions, Dallas, I mean, I always start with saying that I have to eat gluten-free. It's like because of celiac disease, it's not a choice. And then I explain, I can't eat wheat, rye, barley. I can't eat oats either, so I put that in there. And then I start to ask like um what what's your procedure in your kitchen? Do you have a separate prep station? Do you change your gloves? Um, do you have different utensils? And some places have like really good allergy protocols in place where they're actually using different color utensils for different types of food. And there are a few training programs, and I think there's one in Canada as well that does the training for allergen preparation. And that is one of the things they train you on is using different utensils and pots and pans and prep space. Um,
GFFP, I think the gluten-free food program. I think that's
yeah,
called.
yeah. And then the other question I ask when I'm there, I mean, so I ask these questions by email ahead of time. And then when I'm there, I ask the same questions. Even if it's exactly the same question, I'll ask because it's usually a different person. So your email or social media person is not the waiter or the waitress or the chef or the
Right.
manager. So I mean, I could easily say my gluten-free question list to like 4 people by the time I get my meal. Or if it's a place that I've been many times, it's like just confirming with the waiter. And the other thing I always do is when they give me my meal, I ask again, is this the gluten-free whatever? When I went to that pizza place in April with our friends, they actually brought mine out totally separately. They brought all the gluten-free food out first, and then they brought mine out and they say, are you the one with celiac? And I was like, you said the magic words,
Yeah.
and it's just like, it's so nice when somebody can like really reassure you like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do the similar questions actually. I like to do through email as well. One of the best responses I think I've ever received was from the Jasper Park Lodge, I think. Um, my husband was working and I decided I'd go with him. So made a little mini vacation of it. And so before I went, I sent off this email. So I looked at their website first to see if they did have any gluten-free options. And there was a lot of gluten-free options, right? And I had heard through the grapevine that they did really good gluten-free. So I figured, well, I'll just shoot them off an email, see what they say. And the chef actually was the one who responded to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for that specific, and he had celiac as well. So
that to me is like green flag. When there's somebody
it
on
is.
staff, I feel better.
I do feel better, but I do have to say that I still am very cautious because going back to what you always say, my celiac is not your celiac, and some
True.
people don't take it as seriously as others do,
That's true.
especially if they have silent celiac. Because I think that when you don't have those immediate reactions, you're more apt to maybe cheat a little, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And or
yeah.
somebody will be like, well, I eat it and I don't get sick. And I'm like, that's great.
How nice for you. We'll see you,
Yeah.
at the oncologist in 5 years.
Yeah.
But but yeah, so this chef was really good. I mean, he emailed me back, he answered all of my questions, and he even said, when you get there, tell the server so that they're aware. And so when we got there, I was like, because I felt comfortable enough to try at least. So we got there and I was like, okay, because they give you they bring out a bowl of chips to
Mhm.
snack on. And the chips that they have aren't certified gluten-free. However, they do have a separate type of vegetable chip that they brought out for me that was gluten-free.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah, so it was like there were all of these little extras that they offered. So I really did feel safe there, and like it was just you kind of know, right? You can tell that they've been
Yeah.
trained, some of
Yeah.
the servers, in what celiac disease is.
Well, and it's also like this is the hospitality industry, you're supposed to be hospitable.
Right?
But I've worked loosely in the industry for the past 8 years now. And it's like, if you are not, I mean, I see it all the time in New York, but like some places just don't want to be inconvenienced and they see that extra step as an inconvenience. The places that are really successful, they like make these accommodations for people. And I think that's like, if you're going to get into the hospitality industry, like that's kind of what you're supposed to do in my
Right. Right.
mind,
And
Um,
there's so many more people nowadays that have
totally.
food. I always want to go back to say issues, but it's not the right,
Yeah,
but they have.
intolerances and allergies. I know
Yes.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
It's
definitely
much
more
more
common.
common.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, the one challenge that I've seen over the years is getting people to take me seriously, because so many people are gluten-free now. And
Yeah.
and even though there weren't like dedicated gluten-free restaurants when I was growing up, the places that I would dine out were super careful because I was probably one of maybe two that was going in there and saying I have celiac.
Mhm.
But they also, and I'm sure you know this, is like you become a loyal customer. When
Oh,
they
yeah.
gain your trust, you go back and you bring your friends and you bring your family. And so I
Right.
think that any restaurant that's doing it right realizes it's actually a way to get more customers,
Yeah.
really. And I tell that to all my clients when I start working with a restaurant. I'm like, you don't know the power of social media in the gluten-free world. Like,
it's so true.
we're
So
very
true.
vocal. We are very, we want to advocate for ourselves, but also for others, so other people don't get sick. And, I do like to give people the benefit of the doubt to try to fix things. Like this business in New York that had a bumpy start. But also, like, you have to gain that trust right from the beginning, because it could really hurt you,
Yeah.
Um, and, I just think that, I've seen it. I've seen businesses just really get ripped to shreds on social media, and, any kind,
Yeah.
food, and, these businesses labeling their food as gluten-free, and it's testing like 10,000 parts per million or something like that. And, they don't, I don't think these brands realize that there's like this community out there of everyone that's just trying to keep one another safe, really.
Yeah.
So,
It's that one company you were talking about earlier. I know who you mean. I don't remember their name, but maybe we shouldn't mention it anyway. But they, from my understanding, is this wasn't the first time that they've done this either with the mislabeling. It was something they've
yeah.
done previous a couple of times. And
Yeah, from what I know, if we're probably talking about the same company, but yeah, and they keep getting caught. So why do they keep doing it?
I don't know, it makes you wonder. I mean,
Yeah,
to me, if you label your store as gluten-free, that means your whole store, right?
yeah, yeah,
So there's just a lot of issues there. And I mean, I know that the onus is on us as the people who have celiac disease to double check and recheck and do it all over again. But if they want those loyal customers, those people that are going to keep coming back for their product, they need to make it a little easier for us to purchase their product,
for
a
sure.
safe product. And
Yeah, no, for sure. And even some of these small businesses like around in my neighborhood that are serving gluten-free food, but like putting it in a display case at the bottom, and like, and I try to educate them, especially when it's products that I know are good coming from another place. And then I also will reach out to those companies and say, hey, I saw your product in this coffee shop, but like I can't eat it because of the way they display it.
right.
Um, but I have to say, for the most part, like the local gluten-free bakeries that like provide to coffee shops and stuff, they do a pretty good job of kind of educating
Right.
their, who's distributing their food. One disappointing thing is there's this place, Modern Bread and Bagel, which is like the best bagels in New York that are gluten-free. And they started distributing to a bagel store chain. And the one near my house was like, if you have celiac, like you can't eat this bagel. And I was like, but it's from this like amazing gluten-free bakery. He's like,
Right.
but we cut it on the same surface. We use the same toaster. And I was like, oh, like that really
Why?
like killed me, because it's so far for me to get to this one bakery. And now I could walk to this bagel place, but she's like, yeah, it's just not safe. Like I wouldn't risk it. And so I wrote to the bakery and I was like, you need to educate your distributors. Like, because how hard is it to like get a little tiny gluten-free dedicated toaster that's just like right there?
Literally $10 at Walmart.
Totally. Like I will
Honestly.
walk there with it.
Yeah. All they need is a separate toaster, a separate knife, and a separate cutting board.
Yeah.
You can move the cutting board up and out of the way when it's not in use. It's not taking up any extra space.
Yeah.
It's just weird sometimes.
Yeah.
Such a simple. I mean, I get that it's not a possibility for all restaurants to offer gluten-free or safe gluten-free options for
Right.
celiacs. I get that. And I don't expect all restaurants to be able to offer me a safe meal.
Right. No,
What
I
I
don't either.
No, what I do expect is transparency, obviously. But on the other hand, how hard is it to cook gluten-free pasta in its own water?
Yeah.
Because I know there's lots of issues apparently with businesses cooking gluten-free
Yeah.
pasta in the same water as wheat pasta. I don't
Yeah.
get that.
Well, I
But
think you bring up a really good point too, is like, I don't expect every place to be able to feed me. I don't. And I know people in the celiac world that do. They're
yeah,
like, well, you should be able to feed me. And it's like, well, I don't necessarily agree with that. Just like I would not expect a seafood restaurant to not serve shellfish. I have a shellfish allergy. Like,
right.
I'm just like not gonna say, okay, like stop cooking it because I'm coming in. So I think I understand wanting to be able to eat there, but I also don't expect it.
Mhm.
And this may be controversial, but like I know people will say that celiac is a disability. And they say, well, under the American Disability Act, you should be able to provide me food. And like that gets really complicated because
Yeah,
there's so many food allergies. I'm not talking about school. I think that's different. And my son is on not my son, my nephew is on a plan because he has celiac and he has a 504 plan at school, which will allow him to get food. But it's also that is covered under law.
right.
I've never said it's a disability. I don't want to think of it as a disability. And I'm not saying it's bad that that anybody says that, but I also like, I don't know, I just don't expect to be catered to like that, because the reality is like there's a million restaurants in this world. Like you can't have everybody feed you the way you want. You can't walk into a Mexican restaurant and say, I want a pizza. Well, maybe
Right.
in New York you can, but like,
Maybe in New
like,
York, yeah.
actually, I know in New York you can, but you know what I mean? Like you can't
Yeah.
just
No, I get
snap
that.
your
Yeah.
fingers and get what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't think I really consider celiac a disability either, but maybe I think that under in Canada too, I think that it can be considered a disability as well because you can save your receipts, and
Yeah.
apply for a tax credit kind of thing, and it's not worth it for me. But to me, it's not a disability when it comes to going to a restaurant because there are other restaurants you can eat
Hmm.
at. Now,
Yeah.
if I was in a wheelchair and they couldn't get me through the
Yeah.
door because of my wheelchair, that's a completely different situation. That's an accessibility
Yeah.
issue,
Yeah.
right? It's different. But with celiac disease, I don't know. I just find that
Maybe
you
we're
can.
coming into hot water here, Michelle. I
I
think you and I
know.
are on the same page, but maybe not everyone else is. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but yeah, having being able to eat at every restaurant, not not everybody can,
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
Some people they need what am I thinking about here? Halal food.
Right. Right.
They can't eat at every restaurant.
Right.
So
Right.
where is that? Where's that distinction?
Right.
So, but yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, most places too, you can walk in and say, "I'd like a boiled egg. I'd
Right.
like a garden salad." Throw some shredded cheese on it.
Yeah.
And for the most part, they could probably do that safely, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. I think
There
that
was
it's,
a very popular diner that used to be in New York, and I had a meeting there with two other celiac people, and the woman just asked for a banana. Like I was like, I knew they had a dedicated fryer. I was like, give me the fries, give me the BLT, like give me everything. Um, but she wasn't comfortable. So she's like, give me a banana. And I was like, okay, like at least she got her banana.
yeah, that's sad
um,
though too.
but yeah, there's something. Or like
Because
I
there
said, like
was, yeah,
there's
there
water
is,
and wine.
yeah, oh, red wine. I'll take the wine. Dallas and I'd be all over the wine. Um, um, yeah, it's, I don't know. I just think that, I mean, we're straying a little from
Yeah.
the original thing, but that's okay too. Um,
Well,
uh,
and I think it goes back to the restaurant, like being comfortable
yeah,
to ask the questions. If you are not comfortable with what they're telling you, being comfortable to make the decision to not eat,
mhm,
or to like leave.
yeah,
Or like one time in New York, they told me I ordered polenta fries, and They're like, yeah, everything's fine. It's gluten-free. We fry them in a pan. I'm like halfway through the appetizer and they come out, they're like, oh, we dredge it in semolina, which
Oh
is
my
wheat. And the waitress is like, I didn't know that was wheat. And I was like,
seriously?
okay, well, I'm going to have to leave. And she's
Before
like, well,
I
do you like want something to go? And I was like, no, I have to leave. Like,
yeah, barf bag.
I know my body and I have to get out of here.
Yeah, send
And
me home with a
so,
barf bag, please. You
yeah,
know.
exactly. And so like that has happened before too,
Oh,
where I've had to leave meals, but I've also like been comfortable enough because I know if I don't leave, it's going to be a very uncomfortable situation.
mm-hmm.
So it's like, besides being able to ask those questions, it's also being able to speak up if they make a mistake.
Right.
Or I was looking a couple of maybe weeks or a month or so ago, Gluten-Free Dave, who's on Instagram, it was his anniversary dinner, and they he couldn't get a safe meal, but he stayed and he spoke up for himself. I want to say they maybe refunded what he couldn't eat, and but he stayed because it was his anniversary dinner. So
Right.
that was a good choice for him at the time. I've also done the same where I stay, but if I do get food that has gluten, I know I have to leave. I just
Yeah.
physically cannot stay
Yeah,
in
same.
public anymore. So
I usually know within about 10 minutes.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and I also like projectile vomit,
yeah,
so it's like, yeah.
that
I
doesn't
think,
happen to me very often. Me, it's more
yeah,
the other end.
yeah.
And then,
It's like every for
yeah,
me.
that
So,
doesn't, yeah, it's only happened to me a couple times, the vomiting, but I've gone into anaphylactic shock twice also.
oh wow, okay.
So,
From gluten?
yeah,
Oh wow, wow.
that's the only thing that made sense. Because like I went through everything else, like fish and geez, dairy and all these things, and then the celiac disease comes around, and then it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, because it made sense because I had been paleo for a little while, trying
Mhm.
that out, and so obviously off gluten, and I had a salad with croutons on it, and
Wow.
then within 10 minutes, I was like, you need to take me to the hospital. I need to go right now. Yeah, they pushed me ahead of everybody and jabbed me in the leg. And it was like, woo. And
Oh
then one
wow.
time before that, I don't know what I ate, but I swelled up everywhere. Like my father-in-law ended up taking me to the hospital that time.
Oh
And
wow.
while I was sitting there with him waiting to be seen because I wasn't having breathing difficulties at the time, my lips started swelling and he basically watched my lips swell and it was like, okay, it's at my lips now, it's time to tell them I need to get in
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
And then
For
again,
sure.
jab me again.
For sure.
So
Oh wow. That's scary.
it is. But so
Yeah.
now we're gluten free
Yeah.
completely. No gluten comes in my house.
Good. It's good. So well, I see we're almost at an hour. I don't know if anybody else but Dallas has joined. So Dallas, thank you for sticking with us.
Yes, we've got 3 people, but
That's good.
one on YouTube, 2 on Facebook.
Awesome. Okay.
So, but no, I mean these chats are all saved, and if you want the file, I don't know how to get it to you honestly, because I don't know if it'll go through email.
Well, if
But
it saves to your YouTube, I
yeah,
can link to that. So
yeah,
I appreciate that.
it'll be
Yeah, and
on.
I mean, if anybody is listening and has any other questions, I mean, you can message me anytime. Michelle and I mostly chat through Instagram, so
Yeah,
she knows I'm always there.
yeah,
Usually late night scrolling after my kiddo's asleep,
yeah.
but yeah, I'm happy to answer questions. And if you're coming to New York, please reach out because I'm happy to answer any New York questions as well.
Yes, Erin is a great resource for that as well.
Thank you.
And if you have questions that you send to me, I will gladly send them on to Erin. And yeah, I mean, I appreciate you coming and joining me, and we need
Yeah,
to do this
thank
more
you
often.
for having me here. It's great. It's so nice to see you and talk to you like in person in real time.
Yes, I know it makes a difference to be able to see a person, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah. So, all right. Well, I
Alrighty.
appreciate it again, and
Thanks,
we'll
everyone.
I'll do our little outro here, and it should be uploaded right away.
Okay.
Great. Well, we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Michelle. Have a
Thanks,
great
Erin.
night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.